Hi there, dear listener. Laszlo here with a quick pre-roll message for you. Before we get started, I want to let you know there are all kinds of convenient ways for you to support my efforts to bring you all these podcast shows on Chinese history, Chinese sayings, and tea history. If you go to my website at teacup.media and click the support button at the top, you'll find a bunch of ways to show some appreciation. There's Patreon, where you can get early access to new episodes, exclusive content, and an invite to the Teacup Media Discord channel, and more. CHP Premium, that also has early access, exclusive episodes, and ad-free versions of the entire CHP back catalog. Plus, there's several other ways to donate to the show as well. Check the episode show notes for a link to that very page. And my deepest thanks for listening and supporting me and my humble efforts. Hi everyone, Laszlo Montgomery here. This episode is the first in a series that will introduce you, Chinese speaker or non-Chinese speaker, to the interesting and amusing world of Chinese sayings. I thought I'd kick off the series with one of my personal favorite sayings. I came across this one back during the early Reagan years, right after I began my Chinese studies. This one isn't terribly well known, but it's a very nice textbook example of how some of these Chinese idioms and proverbs work. And if I may say so, I've used this one quite a bit over the decades. As I explained in the introduction, standing on their own, it's hard to tell what some of these seemingly meaningless phrases are all about. But if you know the backstory, suddenly it becomes crystal clear what's up with that saying. Like most of these chengyu, or idioms, this one's only 4 syllables long. Guā Tián Li Xià. 4 Chinese characters. A guā is a melon. It's just a generic term for any kind of melon. Tian is a field. So Guā Tián is a melon field. Li is a character that could be a number of things. It's the character for most people with the Li surname. A li is also a plum. And that's what it means in this case, specifically a plum tree. Xia, the final character, means underneath or below. So, you say these 4 characters real fast and you get Guā Tián Li Xià. Melon field under a plum tree. Must be a story behind this one. Indeed there is. Otherwise this whole podcast series would lack a main point. The story behind melon field under a plum tree goes back to the 2nd century, the period of the Eastern Han Dynasty in China. The clock is ticking down on this dynasty, and it will come to an end in the year 220. The origin of this saying comes from a poem called The Song of the Gentleman, Jun Zi Xing, and contained in the lines of this poem were the words, Jun Zi Fang Wei Ran, Bu Chu Xian Yi Jian, Guā Tián Bu Na Lü, Li Xia Bu Zheng Guan. What does that mean? Well, a Junzi is a gentleman. Fang Wei Ran, in order to prevent. Bu Chu Xian Yi Jian, anything looking suspicious. Guā Tián Bu Na Lü, never ties his shoes in a melon field, nor does he ever Li Xia Bu Zheng Guan, adjust his hat under a plum tree. If you're in someone's melon field and you see your laces are untied, for God's sake, wait until you're out of that field before you tie them. Otherwise, someone might see you from a distance and wonder, what's that guy doing kneeling down in that melon field? Is he stealing from that farmer? And if you're chilling under a plum tree, waiting for someone perhaps, well, don't go fiddling with your hat. If someone sees you with your arms up in the air underneath a plum tree, well, they might misconstrue your actions and think you're stealing fruit. The Song of the Gentleman, from which this chengyu example is derived, came from someone you maybe never heard of. His name was Cao Zhi. He was quite a celebrated man of letters, and his father is one of the giants of ancient Chinese history, and I would dare to say might make the short list of the top 10 best-known Chinese leaders of all time. This was Cao Cao, He was the chancellor during the last dozen years of the Eastern Han, and the most powerful military man and political figure in China at the time. Cao Cao used his military might and control of the Han emperors to enhance his legitimacy. In his poem, Cao Zhi teaches us that a gentleman should exercise proper judgment at all times and never allow himself to be observed in circumstances that might be considered of a suspicious nature. He teaches that a gentleman should conduct himself always in such a way that no matter where he is or what he's doing, no one's going to look suspiciously on him and wonder, what's up with that guy? What's he doing over there? So when you're trying to tell someone, don't get caught in suspicious circumstances, you just say to them, hey, Guā Tián Li Xià, melon field under a plum tree. And because now you're all properly schooled about Cao Zhi's story, you hold the key that unlocks the meaning behind this seemingly meaningless phrase. Melon field under a plum tree. Guā Tián Li Xià, ladies and gentlemen. So keep that in mind. Not just gentlemen, everyone. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're potentially suspect. You may be found guilty without even committing the offense. Don't put yourself in a position where people might call you a shady character. It's not as bad as getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, but in a melon field under a plum tree kind of situation, you definitely might have your hand on the lid. So that's our CSP for this time, the Chinese Sayings Podcast. If you found it to your liking, come back for more next time. I'll be offering you up another pearl of wisdom from China's ancient philosophers, warriors, writers, statesmen, and kings that thousands of years later still resonates in our modern 21st century world. Until next time, me little beauties, this is Laszlo Montgomery signing off from hot and sunny, fantastic LA. Again, I invite you to listen to our other shows, the venerable and long-running China History Podcast and the delectable Tea History Podcast, available in your podcast app of choice or at the website at teacup.media. Do consider coming back next time for another delicious and satisfying episode of the Chinese Sayings Podcast.